Welcome back again, everybody, for another phenomenal episode. And today we are going to be comparing Class G versus Class MA permitted development right. Now, why are we going to compare a Class G versus a Class MA when both of them allow you to create dwellings above or as part of a use Class E building? That's a commercial building. Now, I'd just firstly like, before we get started, to say a huge thank you to our audience once again. We've had two very, very, very kind members of our audience who've written in complimenting Linda for her great videos. And what I'd like to do is firstly say thank you to Devon. Devon has commented, Linda, I hope you're well. Amazing stuff. I love the videos you share with us on LinkedIn. I love it. Keep it up. So thank you very much, Devon, for that amazing feedback for Linda. And I'd also like to thank Samantha. And Samantha says, I watched my first video of you and Andrew yesterday on permitted development right changes, and it was really informative and entertaining. Planning topics can be a minefield, but it's always great to hear somebody who is able to help us in dealing with everyday situations. Thank you, Linda. So thank you, Samantha, for that feedback. It's been a delight and a pleasure. If you've got some comments, drop them below. I'd suggest you smash that subscribe button, because very shortly we're releasing a new video on the National Planning Policy Framework that has just been announced. Also, we have readers' questions coming up. Now, we have so many questions coming in that we felt it appropriate to help you in answering those questions. Linda, thank you for joining us again today. It's phenomenal to have you back. And this one is one I've been particularly looking forward to, because I've been going, we've got Class G and we can create flats above a use Class E commercial space. And then we've got Class MA that allows us to create dwellings in a Class E, use Class E commercial space. Why have we got two? What's the difference? Can we compare and contrast these?
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Delighted to be here yet again. It is interesting, isn't it? And you think, why? Why are we doing this? Right, so Class G. Oh, can't believe they've done this, but they've gone and done it. And we have done a video specifically on Class G, just on Class G, although this is the comparison. Class G, as you know, is to create two flats, and always has been, and always now will be, is to create two flats above a shop or an office, an A1 or an A2, as was the use classes. That was completely and utterly fully permitted development. As of the 1st of August, this is now 2020, this is now going to require a prior approval application. So this is bringing it in line with everything else. No longer can you just go ahead and do this. And what I've been doing for clients is submitting a certificate of lawfulness because their lenders were requiring some proof or some evidence that it had the sanction of the local planning authority, even though it's permitted, it is permitted development up until the end of July. So with Class G, you can create two flats above shops. With Class MA, it's the conversion of the entire building. So that fundamentally is the difference between Class G and Class MA.
Okay, so what we're saying is, with Class G, we can create two flats, but they have to be on a floor above the use Class E space. Mm-hmm. Whereas at Class MA, we don't need to retain any commercial space at all whatsoever.
No.
That's quite a big difference.
It's a huge difference. And one of the biggest differences is, and we've you know, we've done a video on Class M, which is an entirely different matter, even though it's next to Class MA, but that's limited to 150 square meters. The new Class MA is all of use Class E uses, and it's up to 1,500 square meters. So that's a big building. Somebody, when I was doing one of these webinars and at night, somebody was asking questions, and he said, does that mean I can go in and convert Debenhams? And I said, well, yes, I know Debenhams have closed down, but most Debenhams are a bit bigger than 1,500 square meters. But yeah, I mean, that's the kind of building that property developers and investors are looking at. Can I convert Debenhams? Yeah, you probably wouldn't get adequate levels of natural light, but go ahead.
I was about to say that. I mean, my local Debenhams, it's very deep building. It's a terrace, and therefore there's no light in there. If ever you walked in, you didn't need light in a shop because they stuck these lights above your head, and there's no requirement for natural light.
Yeah.
So, yeah, good point. Unfortunately, I think they failed.
So let's talk about Class G and Class MA, where they are the same. These are buildings for use Class E, which, as we now know, because again, if you don't know, watch the video that Andrew and I did about the use class changes to Class E. They've bundled together shops, financial and professional offices, restaurants, cafes, all of the former B1 uses, which is general offices, research and development, and light industrial, which is appropriate in a residential area, health centres and creches, health centres and clinics, day nurseries and creches, day centres, and these are all in the D1 and D2 uses, gymnasium and indoor sports and recreation, but it doesn't include swimming pools and skating rinks. So don't think you're going to go and convert those. And actually, they're usually humongous buildings. So both of these uses, you can convert up to 2 flats for Class G, the entire building for Class MA. Now,
no, that's
where they are the same.
I'm looking at that and I'm saying to myself, that's an awful lot of commercial buildings that we could do this on.
Yeah.
But it begs the question, which would be the easier of Class G or Class MA for us to use in that instance? And I saw that wry look on your face going, oh, I hate you for asking that.
Yes, well, yes, funny you should say that. I don't know. The thing is, each one of these classes, GPDO classes, will be appropriate for different buildings, different locations, different sites. And I keep having this mantra, there is no such thing as precedent. And I reposted something on social media from a guy who said this. He said, I wish people would stop coming to me and talking about, oh, it's a legal precedent. No, it's not. It's just you saying, well, he's done that down the road, so I want to do it too. That's not legal. That's not precedent. So you have to look at each and every site, and it will be dealt with on its own merits. So some sites will lend themselves. If you want to keep a retail element or an office element at the ground floor, Class G is perfect. If you want to convert the whole building, then Class M is going to be your vehicle and your method, your route to take that. But again, you're going to have to, there are certain matters that can be considered by the council, because both of these now are prior approval applications as of the 1st of August. So shall we have a look at what matters can be considered by the local planning authority?
I think we'll consider it. And just before we skip on, I mean, you say if you want to retain a commercial use on the ground floor, that we should use a Class G. However, there might be instances where we would use an MA, because under the Class G, there is a domestic waste management policy. Now, we might be looking at this and saying, I've got nowhere to store the bins. Therefore, it's easier to score the goal using an MA than it is with a G.
Yeah,
Advocate, yeah.
That's true. That, you see, I suspect there will be some councils who will still refuse Class MAs on the basis of failure to provide bin storage. I really do suspect that. They may have to end up going to appeal, but I suspect there still will be councils. But I'm going to backtrack on what I've just said, actually, because you can still retain a retail or office element with Class MA. But what you can do with Class MA that you can't do with Class G is, if you have quite a big building, you can keep your retail or your office at the front. You can put a flat on the same floor as the office or retail, on the same floor at the back, if you can provide adequate levels of natural light, and then you can have your flats above. With Class G, you can't do that. You cannot put it on or parts of the flat on the same floor. So that's the difference there with Class MA. If you want to, you know, for example, one of my clients came to me and said, actually, keeping this as a retail or office is going to be a nice little earner, because it's in a good area where there's lots of footfall. So he said, well, I want to keep that as commercial, and then put a flat at the back and flats above. And so that's what is happening. So it's not just that you don't, but you don't have to retain the retail element. Now, with Class G, there is no mention, because it's simply putting flats above. You can do this in a conservation area. Class MA also applies in a conservation area. So there's no difference between them. But now you cannot do this in listed buildings, because if you did this, you're going to require listed building consent, because that's about the interior and the exterior if you're putting new windows and things in. The matters to be considered by the local planning authority when you submit your prior approval, and you're submitting a new prior approval now for class on the 1st of August for Class G. Class MA includes transport and highways impacts. Class G doesn't. So as you was talking about bin storage, if you have no car parking under Class G, it might be argued you'd get away with it because there's no specific requirement. On Class MA, the council are allowed to take into account transport and highways impacts. So that's the difference between Class G and Class MA there. Both need to look at, we'll be able to look at contamination, land contamination, flood risk, adequate levels of natural light. That's kind of where it stops. So contamination risks, flood risk, no adequate levels of natural light, and noise. I'd forgotten about noise. Noise from commercial premises outside that might have an impact on the future occupiers. Now, what Class G has done is, as you quite rightly said, added, you will have to provide arrangements for storage and management of domestic waste. So as we all know, most councils now have about 4 or 5 different coloured bins. So that potentially could be a problem. Might not, it might just have to, you might just have to think about it as to how that is going to be managed. Some buildings lend themselves better to this than others. If your building is in a terrace of properties, how are you gonna get the bin storage from the background? So, you know, that's
might not even be a back on a lot of the roads.
Exactly.
in urban areas. There is no rear access to the commercial premises.
Yeah.
Now, before I ask a really important question of you, Linda, let me just remind the audience, drop some comments below what you think is really the most important things for you and why you would use a G or an MA. What I'd also like to know is your questions, because coming up very shortly, we have a viewers' questions video where we've been getting quite a lot of emails in, and we're about to launch this video with questions. If you want your question answered by Linda, I will pose it to Linda and your question will be answered.
Yeah.
Also, we have a national planning policy framework video, so smash that subscribe button to be the first one to hear what has changed in the new national planning policy framework. Now, Linda, I said I had an important question. Sorry, you were going to say.
I just wanted to finish the matters that can be considered. So, as we've said, contamination, flood risk, noise from commercial premises on occupiers, adequate levels of natural light, arrangements for storage and management of waste. That's class G. Don't forget, as this now requires a prior approval, oh God, I'm sorry, I'm going into nerdism. It requires a prior approval under paragraph W, section W of the GPDO. That section requires that all premises, this is new because it wasn't required under the permitted development section, comply with the nationally described space standards. Here we go again. 37 or 39 square meters, your absolute minimum. That applies to class MA as well, obviously. But with class MA, there are further matters that can be considered by the local planning authority. And these include, as well as the ones that we've just gone through, impact on occupiers in a heavy industry area. So if there's any kind of, it's not just noise, it's vibration, movement of vehicles. If you're building something, if you're converting something next to a scrap metal merchant and they're grinding and chewing cars up, then that's probably going to cause a bit of a problem. Any sort of noxious fumes or anything like that might be an issue as well. Impact on health centre or nursery provision. So if you find a nursery or a former health centre, if it's vacant, and we need to talk about vacancy in a minute as well, because I've missed that out. If it's vacant, it's usually because it's no longer fit for purpose and they've moved on. Perhaps a developer somewhere has built 500 houses and part of their legal agreement was that they had to build a new health centre. So that's you. But if there's an impact, if there's going to be provision of services affected, then that might be another reason for refusal. And finally, any impact on a conservation area, because as I said before, you can do this in a conservation area, but obviously if you're going to be taking the shop front window out and converting that into a residential environment and looking building, then that could potentially have an impact on the character of the listed building. Now, we talked about vacancy. With class MA, massive difference to class G, which still says that class G must have been used for the retail commercial purposes since 2013, March 2013. So that's not been changed. I'm not quite sure why that's not been changed. I would have thought it might have been, but maybe they've just overlooked it. I don't know. With class MA, buildings must have been in use as class E, the new class E, or the uses before that, because that only came in last year. From the 1st of September, that's when it came in, or the original use classes, whatever they were, A1, A2, all of those. Buildings must have been used for 2 years in that use class, class E, the commercial use class, and vacant for 3 months prior to submitting the planning application. So, if you've got, and this part of this is that central government are trying to look at vacant buildings and use the vacant buildings, not that you're to go round there with an eviction order and say to your tenant, right, that's it, get out, I want you out of here, I'm submitting a planning application in 3 months. That's not really the intention. I'm sure that's going to happen with some buildings, but that's not the intention. And as I've said before, the size of the building is up to 1,500 square meters.
Okay, well, can I just say, you read my mind, because I had an important question I was going to ask you, because earlier in this video, you said that Class G and Class MA can both be used in conservation areas. And I was going to ask you a question specifically about the fact that with a Class G, you do not need to do an impact assessment report, whereas with Class MA, you did. And then you went and added that in. So you took away my Brucey bonus question.
Oh, sorry, Andrew. We're doing this Vulcan mind meld, aren't we?
Absolutely. And you're doing a phenomenal job, Linda.
Oh, thank you, darling.
What we're basically looking at here is Class G. You might use it in certain circumstances where you want to retain the commercial space, whereas Class MA, I want to get rid of all of it. You can't do that with a Class G. No. You might have more than 200 square meters or more than 150 square meters. Therefore, you'd have to use an MA opposed to a Class G. You might not have bin storage, so you might need to use an MA in a situation ordinarily that you could use a G.
Yeah.
It's really interesting to compare and contrast these very subtle differences, and to work out what is the right one to use. And I think at this point, what I would say is, even I've swallowed pretty much the planning Bible on this, find this real minefield of rules for this and rules for that, and this applies with that, and it doesn't apply with that. I would urge you to reach out to Linda if you've got an application, especially in the first year or two, because it's so confusing. Even the councils are going to be confused, and you need an expert to be able to convey this in the language that the planners understand. Now, the language we use with you in these videos is simple, and it's clear, and it's concise to get you the message across. But the planners talk in gobbledygook. They talk about the rhythm of the street. I didn't know there was a brass band marching up and down the street, but they use jargon and language that only they understand and means something to them. So Linda, sorry, I've interrupted your flow, and I know our viewers are going to smash that subscribe button for our future videos that we've got coming up and be the first to hear about it. And they're going to smash the share to share this useful information with their friends. So tell me, Linda, where do you think the opportunities are with for our audience here?
Well, you know me, I'm the prophet of doom, basically. You're the one that looks at the opportunities. I think it is unfortunate that this Class G is no longer a permitted development. I think a lot of people had used that, and I think the whole intention of central government years ago when this was first brought in was that you could quickly and easily bring people back into the town and city centres and create and convert residential environments above what was ostensibly storage or wasted space. And I do think it's a shame that they appear to have sort of gone back on that, but they do seem to be dragging everything into the prior approval, this hybrid system. So that's something that is no longer, will no longer be an opportunity for that. But I think Class A MA, with the size of that 1,500 square meters, I do think that's an opportunity, because that's quite a big building. It's a big area, provided that you can comply with all of the matters that can be considered by the local planning authority. And there's no mention of any operations being included. So there is an issue that you might have to submit if you're going to be doing works, for example, to the shop front. You might have to submit a planning application for that afterwards. There might be a condition on there. So I'm struggling to find opportunities. I'll leave that to you, Andrew.
Well, thank you very much, Linda. I mean, I see the opportunities here as being very much giving you a choice as to which particular prior approval process you choose. And what I would do, I know Linda's done one of her fabulous comparator sheets, is let you look down that list of whether you need a waste management plan and can fulfill that requirement. If there is a transport issue with your particular development, perhaps an MA is a better route. Therefore, you can compare and contrast, and you, as the developer, can choose which method is best for you, rather than going down a fixed route. If you're after 2 dwellings and it's above a shop, you must go this route. I think this gives choice, and that opens up opportunities that might otherwise be closed off to people. So I think for me, there's optimism in that we have choice. And a bit like McDonald's, when they go, would you like a large one, or would you like a chicken burger or a beef burger? There's not too much choice. We've just got a choice of 3 really, which is permitted development right G, or prior approval to be precise, prior approval class MA, or a full planning application. I know which I would prefer to go down the road of out of all of those. Drop me your comments below as to which you prefer, and tell us if this video was useful to you.
And don't forget, Andrew, I know we're talking about class G, we've talked about class M, we're talking about class MA. Don't forget, if you find an amusement arcade or a casino, you can use GPDO class N for noddy, to convert to dwelling houses as well. I've not seen many of these. This will also require prior approval. I've not seen many casinos converted, to be perfectly honest, but if you find one, again, let us know.
Well, I've got a friend who produces videos, and he loves Blackpool. He really loves Blackpool. And I think we should do a video on Class N to help the people in Blackpool convert those surplus casinos or surplus amusement arcades into residential dwellings.
Are we doing a road trip?
Yeah, I think we are. I think we are.
Are we going to do a video at the top of Blackpool Tower?
Well, if I told you the story of my last time I was at the top of Blackpool Tower, well, we won't go there in this particular video. But on that note, I think we'll say goodbye to our audience for today. It's been a phenomenal update once again, Linda, and thank you for joining us. If you haven't already, smash that subscribe, the share button and the like button. Drop your comments below, because we have another 2 videos coming out to you very shortly that you will not want to miss. A new national planning policy framework and a viewers questions video. Linda, thank you once again. You've been phenomenal. It's goodbye from me. I'm Andrew.
And it's goodbye from me. I'm Linda. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time.